Consistent self-improvement, everybody. You are now listening to American gypC Podcast. I'm your host, Classic.
And I'm gypC.
And we are also here with our return guest, Akello.
Hey, I'm here in person. There's no Zoom. This is live. I love it.
Love it as well. And we thank you for coming in. Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah,
Happy 2023.
Yeah, 2023.
Starting off with the blast. So, Akello, last time, like you did say, it was Zoom 2021. We were basically kind of into our first season. This is season 3 for everybody, episode 1, season 3. We're honored to have Akello to open it up as well, especially in person, because we are focusing on being in person this year. So the difference in between last year and this year, what would you say LA's temperature is when it comes to coming from the pandemic to life and just being us?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience. But although I start from that point, but I say I'm speak from my own experience, and then it's sprinkled with what I hear from other people. But I know that for me, it has been, I have had to get over social awkwardness. And there was a time when I was just out and about and, making moves and meeting people. And then, after the pandemic of the months and months and months of isolation, plus I work from home primarily, it was like being around other people was a little bit different. Yeah. I got with it eventually, but at first it was just kind of weird because I remember shopping in Trader Joe during the epidemic or the pandemic, and people, the epidemic. Well, it was an epidemic,
yeah.
But a big one.
Yeah.
People had a look of suspicion on their face whenever they looked at you while shopping. And I was like, this is weird. And then I'd be like, oh, I wonder if they got it. Are they going to give it to me? So we all had that. And then as the masks start to fall off, it was interesting. There were people that I talked to and I had never seen their face before.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I teach college.
Yeah.
And so when I came back to campus to teach a class, there's students that wore masks. It was optional at that point. But I never saw their face the whole semester. Wow. Never saw their face. And so, luckily we see people's eyes, and I think eyes do tell us a whole lot. But there's a lot of real estate.
A lot.
I'm a big on nonverbal communication. So I think seeing people's faces and just taking all that information in is just like, wow, it almost felt new, but it wasn't. So it's interesting how we can, our brain, the malleability of our brain to say, okay, so I'm going to be around myself most of the time, except for screens, and how we make that normalized. But then that's not normal. That is not normal in terms of how long human beings have been on the planet. And here we are in our own homes interacting through digital means. Very different experience.
Yeah, I recently had a text message from a chiropractor that I met, I think over the past year, and had only seen the mask. And she's had a picture with her, information. I was like, wow, I never, like, who is this?
Right.
Like, oh, and just, and I was, it was surprising.
The other thing that's interesting is and as I kind of re-enter some of the circles that I moved in after years of not being around, like the improv world, improv theaters and things like that, I will, I'll be at an improv show, as an audience member, or I did a monologue for this show called Monologues in Mayhem at the Glendale Room. But anyway, people would remember who I am, and I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I can't remember. And they'd be like, I've been to a party at your house, and I was like, I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's L.A. That's a bit of L.A. That happened with us yesterday with a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What happened?
What?
As far as mentioned that I was a cello player. And he only remembered that part of the cello player. I was, I mentioned, how's everything been? But he couldn't quite remember where he knew me from.
Right.
And I'm the cello player. You know,
It's the sheer volume.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the sheer volume of people, and I think with Zoom and people getting in kind of, if you've ever been in a multi-person conference on Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
so that's more people that you got to try to remember, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then me personally, I have about 350 students annually.
Wow.
Try to get to know them, recognize them, boom, boom, boom. Then here comes another bunch of students. Your brain doesn't just erase
Yeah.
all the people, but I think that the farther away people are in your memory, then those people are going to some other deep storage, the iron mountain of the brain, right?
Are
Do
you?
you feel?
I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, do you feel like when you're doing a Zoom, and you're teaching a bunch of people, so it's a big Zoom, like, do a lot of people have their camera on or off?
I think it's about 30 to 40% with the camera on, if that's the
Okay.
option.
Okay.
I do actually do a 7 a.m. to 7:30 Zoom meditation. It's
Okay,
daily, and there's
nice.
about 30 people that.
These are for your students.
No, this is what I do in the morning personally. This is part of like a sangha.
Okay.
The thing with the students is I don't teach synchronously. I teach asynchronously.
What does that
So
mean?
I no longer have those live sessions.
Mm.
They're just not effective for college student. It just doesn't work. Let's just
Gotcha.
say, let's put it like that. It doesn't work. I think it works in things like meditation, because the idea, there's usually only one person talking, the Dharma teacher, right? Everybody else is listening, but it's the presence of people. You know, kind of like being in a space with a lot of people, but no one's talking to each other. There's that presence, like a church, if you will.
Right.
But it doesn't really, I think there's too much distraction for people, and people can become distracting within those Zoom settings.
Yeah.
So yeah, that doesn't really work, at least from my vantage point. It definitely doesn't work for high school students.
Yeah. So you're going in now as far as physically? They've started back.
I did go last semester, but I'm back online 100% right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has classes started? I know we're in the kind of winter break for certain schools.
In the school where I am, there's called the winter intersession. So it's 16 weeks of content crammed into 5 weeks.
Okay.
And then they go back to the spring. Yeah, it's like an in-between, like speed.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Like
It's a lot.
summer
Yeah.
school.
What's your
It is.
opinion on the breaks or the education, like the timing in the educational system? Even like, America has their go to school for so long, and then there's a break, summer break, and then you go to school for so long, winter break. And then other countries don't have these kind of breaks for their kids or, for the educational system. You got any?
Man, I'm telling you what, I think the whole educational system needs to be revamped.
Yeah.
I think and I always like to think in terms of what's possible. It's like we cannot change these huge institutions immediately, right?
Right.
No.
But from my experience and being a student, I feel like, I learn a lot about being a student from being a student.
Right.
I was a student, and I remember it almost like it was yesterday. But let's say you took 4 classes in a semester, right? And there were 4 classes. They were like 16 weeks happening concurrently. I feel like that's too much. I'd rather there be 2 classes at a time that go for 8 weeks, double time, accelerated, but there's only 2, subject matters to bounce, possibly 3 for the overachiever, and then once you get that 8 weeks done, then you have another 8 weeks where you take 2 more classes. You're still knocking 4 classes out within the same period, but you're not juggling. I remember taking 5 classes and working and doing all that, and I'm like, way too much to juggle. And that's where you get, I don't think that students are getting the depth of knowledge that they should be getting from higher education, because we're trying to give them too much at the same time.
Yeah, and that's when you get into trying to cram and not really take in the information properly.
Exactly.
It's too much all at once.
It's too
especially
much
if it's
all
not
at
similar
once.
classes.
It's exactly. And it's too much. And then they try to figure out what they can do to get by minimally.
Mm.
But that's not what higher education should be about. It should be about a deeper knowledge. it should really be about cultivating that thirst for deeper knowledge,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and more expansive thinking. People use critical thinking all the time, but I think it's more about expansive thinking, multiple perspectives and ideologies, and understanding theory and concept and what it means, and integrating that into our thoughts and the way we move through the world. Not just, I'm going to learn this, take the test, 2 weeks later I couldn't pass the test. Kind of, that's not, that's like it's kind of a working class methodology to start to stratify people depending upon what they gain from college. You know, because some of the students that I've had, I would never hire them in a million years. I'm just being, I have friends that I would never hire or work with, right? Yeah. So, like, to me, I've been like telling my students, this is the last stop before you're out into the work world. And you thought this was a lot of work, you know. You thought, because
it's nothing but work after
it
this.
It is nothing but work. It's so bizarre because the online classes, they do really kind of operate. If you've ever had a corporate job where you're like, 250 emails to go through every day, just the bombardment. Back in the day, we had voicemail and everything. And if I tell the students, if y'all can't keep up with this, you are going to be burned and eaten alive. So yeah, it is.
What made you get into teaching?
Well, I was
even college kids.
You know what? I was a corporate recruiter, and I recruited at universities. I did like interview schedules. I came and, did that kind of thing for those management training rotational programs where, they have a cohort of new employees that fresh out of college, either master's level or there's some bachelor's, but I really focus on MBAs. They would move through the different business units in this 1 year period and learn all the different business units. And then they would find what they really liked or what clicked with them. I would go to these prestigious universities like USC and UCLA, because at the time I was working out of San Francisco. And I would go to the career fairs. That was part of the job. And students did not know how to present themselves to recruiters.
It's not just students, it's professionals.
Absolutely.
I get people trying to coach me, like some recruiters trying to coach me, and I'm like, I know how to do interviews. Like, I've been doing this for a while. And then they'll say like the most basic things, which let me know like people are out there doing some really weird things.
Yeah, so my thing was like, we got a little turn here. Okay, so and this is my mentality as a recruiter is I felt like higher ed was failing students because they might have some book knowledge, but they don't know how to interact with the recruiter. They don't know how to write a resume. It was just, I would be honest with them, and I said, like, this resume right here, if I got this in the office, it would go right in the trash. I said, I would not hand I remember saying this to a young person. I would not hand these resumes out to anyone here. It is going in the trash. You need to rethink that. So then I was like, maybe how could I fix this? How could I contribute to this? So teaching was a conduit for me to be able to reach them with life skills, to have a captive audience. Of course, I like the topic and the subject matter of sociology, absolutely. But I really wanted to get in there and help them. So I started, when I came here to LA, I left my corporate job. I didn't have a job here. I hustled for a long time. I did payday loans. I started writing grants, like doing as a grant writer, which is a lot of work. That's how I got into the community college system.
Okay.
Then I got hired to run a GED prep program at a college. And then I started picking up classes at different colleges. So it just all snowballed, but it all started with that seed of like, what are they going to do? I need to help these young people out somehow. So part of my curriculum has always been life skills, has always been talking about, resumes and helping students with personal statements and that kind of thing, and which I find very fulfilling.
Nice.
Yeah, because sometimes that's missing.
And it's needed.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I've taken like a few random classes in school before that really taught you life skills, but for the most part, sometimes you're kind of theoretically talking about it, but not how it applies in the real world. So
Exactly.
you're not really prepared when you come out.
You're not.
I do a lot of self-taught stuff, so I'm used to like picking up a lot of different things on my own.
Yeah,
so
and not everybody is
Not everybody's.
what autodidactic, is that the word? But
is
there's
that what it's
where you
called?
learn
I'm not sure.
you
Yeah.
learn on your own. You learn things on your. Now there are a lot of people that those are different kinds of we're different kind of people than most. Most are gonna flail about. They just are not that internal locus of control. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So the internal locus of control is you have something within you that motivates you and drives you to do things, and other people have the external locus of control, is when you are relying on other people to drive you. You're lying. So people, for example, some people need to be told what to do, like at every step of the way, and other people say, "This is where I want to end up. I'm going to find a way to get there," and they get there.
You just reminded me of this class that I took, and it's like a Photoshop and animation class, and he gave us an instruction. He told us what the end result is, and a huge stack of paper of instructions of how he wants you to get there, step by step. And I'm like, I already know how to use it, so I did it. Finished quicker than everyone, and then showed it to him, and instead of being impressed, he was kind of like irritated that I didn't follow it exactly like how he did it. And I was like, I have the exact same result. He's like, yeah, but you didn't do it this way, so you're missing this and that. And I'm like, okay. So I like doing it my way. And
Gotcha. Me too.
I learned by teaching myself so many things that I am happy when I'm learning a new thing. It's actually like fun for me. So, I pick up a lot of random
sometimes
things.
it's a thin line between confidence as well. It seems like
Yeah.
for some people to, like you said, you have the kind that you can go ahead and you'll try it and you'll do it, and then somebody else has to be told, to do certain things.
Right.
And you kind of wonder if that is what, if it's like you said, it is what you call it, the inner locus.
Internal locus of control.
Locus.
Yeah.
Is it, does it have anything to do with confidence or maybe upbringing?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think this is what I think it is, because the idea just like popped into my head, and a lot of this is really it comes to light through meditation and Buddhist philosophies. But we love, as human beings, we love pleasure. We love things that feel good.
Of course.
We love things that are easy, right? And I say we collectively, not everybody, but a lot of people like things that are already done for them, as opposed to doing it themselves. That's a consumer-driven mentality. But it really is the pleasure. And I'm going to tell you, when you learn something on your own, it is not easy. It can be frustrating. You can mess things up. Like if you're doing something on the computer, right? You're learning I'm teaching myself now animation.
Right.
And there are times where I just, like, I'm so irritated. The program might like crash, and then I got to reload it. It's like that would stop some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd be like, I'm done. Like me, I'm just like uninstall, reinstall. Try it a different way. Pull up a YouTube video. Oh, I didn't save it. I just did all that work. Old me would be so angry and have really negative self-talk. Now I'm like, oh, I lost it. I guess I'm start again. But you always do learn, by stumbling and by putting the time and effort in. And it's not always a fun and joyful experience.
Yeah, and it's something that you can develop in yourself. Like you can change. I think the more you do it, the more trust you have in yourself. And so, you kind of know to keep doing it because you have trust in yourself that you can accomplish something. So
yeah, I think that's a good word, trust, because I think anything that we do, we want to get to an end point, right? We want a result, big or small. We're trying to achieve this ability to do something. Like I remember learning Adobe Illustrator, and I would over the years I would try it, and I'm like, I just can't. It's too much. I can't do it. And then I would go back to it, and I'm like, why are you overthinking it? Because I wasn't taking the time to really explore. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was like, I think the trust issue is, what if I put all this time and effort and nothing comes of it, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh well, so be it.
I hit a brick wall with that with music production. I think as far as when it comes to even just songwriting and stuff like that, I took a break from it. Of course, after doing it for so long, and this is over the past 2 years. So even I could say 2020 aimed for just kind of taking a break, not having to think about writing a song and having that stage. And then, like I said, also noticing, I kind of have noticed, I haven't been meditating as much as I need to be as well, but even from, like I said, those hurdles that you used to just kind of jump over when it's there, the program is acting funny, or, you've hit just a brain fart and can't come up with the lyric and things like that, to still have that fuel to be like, no, I'm going to complete it, or I'm going to get on by it. Mm-hmm. Then getting to a point of, I guess, going from not listening to music and feeling okay or feeling nice with the silence, not having just a peace of mind, period. And then having to refuel. I've kind of gotten a recharge and looking to move back into the creative space, but still, like I said, not quite powered up with that, okay, I've hit a little brick wall, let me keep on pushing by it. Or I know I have to learn a lot. And then also, I could say I got a little taste of, like, is this a hamster wheel type of imposter syndrome to a certain degree? And, just kind of looking at all of that, putting it all on the board. How do you, as far as, what are strategies? I'm sure you've probably, with your experience with, all that you've done from film and music or anything like that, how do you keep that energy or that level of mindset?
Well, I think that you kind of what you said is, when I feel like I'm not passionately motivated or inspired to do something, I just switch to something else. Yeah. And it doesn't mean I don't come back, because like I came back to Illustrator, I'm in and out of GarageBand and, creating stuff just to create, not like this, a lot of the stuff that I do is not, I'm not trying to commodify it. I'm just exploring how many different ways can a person express themselves,
in life, period.
In life, right.
Yeah.
But artistically, vocally, the written word, interactively, performative wise, culinary. I'm stepping up my culinary game. It's like, I don't like to say I was lazy, because lazy is when someone's doing nothing, but I'm always too misdirected to really want to make the food that I want to eat. You know what I mean? Like, it's different if someone, if when you're eating alone, like I will be really quick with stuff, right? But now I'm really like cutting. I spend a lot more time cutting vegetables as opposed to buying them already cut up or not having them at all, So, but I knew for me, it was like, why don't you spend more time doing that? And I think I've kind of made a shift in my mind where I don't feel, because I've been in California 25 years now.
Wow.
So this is since 25. No, 26 years. Yep. 26 years. I thought it was 25. Damn it. I missed that magic number that I could have said last year, 25 years. And I think in 2023, and this is not like a plan or anything, but like I feel like I don't feel as pressured to chase, create, produce. You know what I mean? Like, I want to spend 2 hours in my kitchen cutting and, listening to music and that kind of thing. To me, I don't always have to be doing something, let's put it like that, for other people.
And I feel like that. I feel like to a certain degree, I always have to be doing something. And then when I think about the thing that I kind of want to do, it's like, am I inspired? Well, not necessarily am I inspired to do it, but if it's involving producing, there's just I don't know, I've hit a real musical brick wall with the cello wise. I can pick up and tickle my cello, and you know, I can feel a good energy coming off of the, you know, looking forward to getting back into performing and stuff like that, coming from, you know, zero to jumping back into it. I look at all of that for 2023. Definitely learned a lot from the past 2 years. Like I said, podcast wise, this is season 3. It's one of those new things that all right, if you're going to stop doing this, what's there? And that's the podcast thing. And I do love that energy. That's something that is an inspiring energy that is there. I know I still give it, 5 years later. I can look at it, 5 years later, 10 years later, a lot easier than looking at a music career 5 years later from now, And then this was what we would call a pandemic proof type of power move.
Yes. Yeah.
To where if LA, like I said, we've never seen LA close like that. If LA was to close, we could still do this.
What in your knowledge, I know that during the pandemic, like podcasts were just springing up.
Yeah.
Everywhere, right? But I also know that people don't endure. They come on strong and they're like, oh, this is probably just too much work, and then eventually fades away. Yeah. Have you noticed that in the podcast realm that podcasts are starting to kind of fade away?
Well, we will probably look like we faded away for the second half of the year, even though I guess we took a break to recoup, but we had already recorded 99 episodes within the first 6 months.
People don't think it's it takes work, so they just see it and it's like, oh, it's super easy. So I think a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, honestly, they're a little bit bigger. So it's a business already, and it's well funded.
Right.
So I'm not really sure if it died off, but with smaller podcasts, it's like they might have to take, life happens and it might just be like, so like they might just take a break and then come back, or they can't be as consistent.
Right.
So, but I have seen in 2020, like during the explosion of podcasts, like people would just like start the trailer and that was it. Like I'm checking in. This is like 6 months, a year into them doing the trailer, and that's all they have.
Yeah.
So it's, there's a lot of that too. They see how much work it is, or just don't know where to go with it and realize they have to promote and do different things.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, I did a limited podcast with 13 episodes and I was like, I'm done. I took a break from video editing for a while because, I think it was the amount of time of sitting there, right? And the amount of just little quirky things. Like for me, I have to feel like really inspired to edit something for long periods of time, right? But then it was just like, okay, I tell myself, don't open anything up. Don't open the Pandora's box right now. Like I'm flirting with the idea of this.
Creativity is sitting there always.
It's just always there, and I'm just trying to figure out. So I went down the animation rabbit hole.
I did that a little bit too.
Right?
I noticed you just started that.
I did.
Too.
I said I'm gonna teach myself. I'm just gonna see how it all plays out. I mean, it
is
crash.
neat, though.
Yeah, I want to try.
It is what I'm trying to do is, and again, the other thing that I always like to do is I like to involve other people. So I had this whole idea with this animation to involve the voices of people that I know who do improv. But then what happens is, and again, I've done similar things, is, okay, then you got to like schedule time with them, and then this has to happen, and that has to happen, and then this has to be put all together and make it fit and all that. And I was like, oh man, I really want to, but I don't want that back end work, because then it doesn't feel creative anymore. It feels like work. Yeah. I wanted to feel joyful, right? But I was like, and the other thing is, I was like, maybe I'll play all these different characters myself. with different. That's the thing about
Even
like
more work.
and well,
But it's easier.
let me tell you,
More control though.
Yeah.
totally more control. Let me tell you. Imagine doing an animated series where you are all the characters, but you're improvising it. So you're not writing a script. You're improvising the scene. You think of the scene, you make it happen. Maybe have a couple people involved. I don't know. But my fear is I get it going, right? And then the program, because, you know, when the computer is like, are you going to update me? Are you going to get a new one? What you going to do? I'm like, no, this is not happening. I don't want to push it to the max so that I can't do anything with it, right? Because I think you can do that. It's like pushing it to the max.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, maybe I'll do maybe I'll do a short animated film, like 5 minutes or something. Then there's a less commitment, right? But I'm still being able to do something. So I'm kind of in the phase of like, I don't really know. And then I'd be like, go cut some vegetables up. Go to the farmer's market.
But what is it? What happens? Like, what do you think happens to that stage of, you know, because I remember producing. Once I started, I was producing, and, you know, just always making a beat, making the music. And it wasn't work then. And it was more of, you know, just drive. And then it gets to a point to where even video, photography, it gets to a point to where it's just not a pleasure the way it is, or it's not a, you know, I guess maybe we've gotten used to instant gratification. I know I could say I've gotten a little spoiled of instant gratification. You know, what is it? Is it?
Well, I think like what gypC said, life happens, number one. Those are those uncontrollable variables in your life, in other people's lives who you're connected to. Yeah. Our moods shift. The seasons change. That affects our moods. What we're putting into our body, what we're eating. There are no there are no variables that stay the same. I mean, if you was to like live in a cave and you ate the same thing every day and everything became routine, even then I think you would still, you know, there's things that happen in our body. There's things that change or things that we're exposed to. Yeah. Why do we no longer do this when we used to do it all the time? Why do we no longer eat this when we used to eat it all the time? I mean, well, what we're talking, you know, really, we have this idea that everything, if all the variables are balanced out, then it's going to be this, every day is going to be the same. You're going to feel the same. You're going to do the same thing. And, you know, why do we stop doing something that we used to do all the time? You know?
How do we lose that drive?
How do we lose that drive? Does it just become dormant? Are we done with that right now? You know,
no.
No, I'm saying no. Just the idea of we have to ask ourselves, are we done with this right now? Like, let's like.
I believe we know we're not done with it. Even like with what I have going, it's like I know I'm not done with, even music wise or production wise. I know I'm not done with it. I just have to recharge, and like I said, that I know it might not feel inspired, but just push to look at it, you know, to kind of, I guess. Yes, almost thinking young, kind of going back, reflecting on when I first started. That's kind of how I try to think of things, even in that prime producing. You're coming from, I used to make maybe 10 beats a week, or, you know, 10 beats maybe every few days, to where, all right, I'm not producing anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mean done. I mean for that moment, you know. But like, I call it like redirecting energy.
But it's also life, though, so you never know when you're actually done with things as well. So you also have that part of, because I think I saw a little clip of a guy, famous bowling guy. You know, his last bowl, thanking the fans, all that. You know, thank y'all for watching. That's all, and just thinking about it, like everybody, even from fighters, they all have a day where they retire. And it's close to it. So making, you know, completely having confidence in, okay, this is the gift. I'm meant to do it. I have to do it. I have to push through it. I know the world may not care about it, and these people may not care about it, but, you know, I know that there's a charge there. There's I guess you could say a life force dealing with, even for me with music. Podcasts, there's a life force that just started there. Now, would I've known 20 years ago when I started doing music that I could have a similar charge like this. So even from having dreams, we have places where, you probably still chase your dreams. You probably have some friends that probably didn't have dreams to chase. So even to continue to chase your dreams, just period, or know that they're able to be, that you are accomplishing dreams. Those are some of the things that I think that I've had to kind of battle with, I guess, just the realization of, like you said, life happens, things happen. So when coming back to the podcast, even why we started the podcast, or other people that, don't have their podcast, we came at ours, I guess, more for, I'm going to invest in it to where I have 4 mics and we can do our content. And if that works, that's cool. If not, I could still use it as a business and I can go set up and help other people as well.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of helped us from knowing that once we start this, we're gonna do it, and we can take a break from it. But the overall podcast industry, I think that's kind of go back to where we've seen, it blow up, and people that's fallen off and people that's continued to keep going. Some of the subjects have went from the pandemic stuff to celebrity chasing. Some people can't continue to keep up with the celebrity world with what they're reporting on podcasts, and a lot of other people podcasts is not quite about anything that's valuable. And I think with us focusing on people more, that kind of helped as well with kind of being prepared for longevity with whatever topics that we're coming up with. Mm-hmm. And even kind of, I think, for helping people, because for me, I did come at it to learn as a podcast person. So I know it's like there's forever, there's going to be always something to learn about.
True. Yeah.
And I guess at this point, it's more like learning how to get that spark back from certain things. I think for 2023 and for me, kind of paying attention to everybody does go through. And depression has been a huge thing over the past few years. I don't know have you ever felt like I've been depressed?
There was like one time, a long time ago though, like before you picked your cello back up or whatever.
So that was
like
over,
a transitioning time.
Right. So that
was a long time ago, yeah.
Before here, yeah.
But yeah, usually no.
What's your experience with depression?
Oh man. I'm laughing about it because I have a deep experience with depression, very long time experience with depression, beginning when I was 15. And I learned to manage depression with marijuana, number one. And I also learned to, like, even, let's say, December, in December, something about in December, I think the change in the weather. I'm not someone who celebrates Christmas. I'm not someone who is focused on holiday cheer. I'm not a Grinch. I'm just be nice to people all year round. Give someone a gift on Tuesday in May for no reason because you saw something you thought they'd like, but don't feel the weight. So the weight of all that, I think there's a certain hyper empathy that I have where I feel the weight of other people's expectation of what the holidays are and how things fall short. And I'm like, I abandon all that. You abandon certain unrealistic expectations, it mellows things out. But I do notice I still have periods. I can tell where I'm not really productive. I don't feel inspired. I don't feel passionate about things. And then eventually I come out of it,
learning how to identify it. That's kind of one of the things, because I hear so much about it. And it's like, am I a person that could say I've never been depressed? It's like, I just might need to know how to identify it a little better.
Well, go ahead.
But no, go ahead.
Well, I was
Sorry,
just
lost
saying,
my train.
I was saying you did identify it because that spark wasn't there for something that used to be there.
But I probably was still producing during the time. I was still, you say, what was that? Before I started back playing my cello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was still producing music, but I wasn't playing the cello then. You know, so, yeah.
Well, I mean, but it doesn't mean when you're depressed doesn't mean you can't do anything or can't create, you know,
Right.
but it feels different, right? And we shift away from something that felt so familiar and comforting. Sometimes we shift.
I feel like it's a chemical imbalance. Like I've been to the point where, and that's when I kind of started to understand depression, is like I felt like I didn't have control over it as much. I don't know. It's like I don't know.
Yeah, and I know it's different for different people.
Yeah.
But like I said, even you're able to identify your depression. If you're able to identify your depression, and it's still like, all right, can I identify if I'm depressed or not? Or, you know, even for example, DJ Twitch, you know, he's a guy that recently passed,
Right.
and you know everybody's saying they weren't able to identify that he was even feeling suicidal or anything like that. So,
because sometimes people will keep up appearances just so they don't really want to talk about it with other people. So they're just kind of go with the motion in public, and then, you know, they kind of deal with it when they're alone. But I was going to say, like, there's levels to it, because sometimes you have those times where you're not inspired to take action on whatever you have going on. And I feel like that's a cue to kind of switch to something else that you're supposed to be doing. I feel like it's just your inner self kind of telling you like, no, you're supposed to be doing something else. So just find something else to pivot to, and then you'll come back to it. Because I've been trying to get better lately at taking more inspired action versus like I'm always trying to force something, or like, you know, I'm trying to go always chasing something or trying to like build on something. And I've been trying to like, and that over time I burn out a lot. And so I've been trying to manage that by just kind of, if I'm not feeling inspired towards something, and there's a little guilt there, like, I should be working on this. Because we do a lot, you know, we have a lot of different, you know, things that we do. And, you know, there's a guilt sometimes, I can't do this because I'm working on this and that. And so taking the guilt off and trying to get better at like only taking inspired action. And I feel like that's a better timing for everything, because that's the real timeline you're supposed to kind of be on. And that's your inner self kind of telling you, no, you're supposed to be doing this and that. And just try to get better with listening to your intuition and pivoting instead of like trying to swim upstream, basically. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good explanation for it. Like, how do we operate? We operate in a society of great repression.
Yeah.
And plus, I feel like really being in a depressive mood, I don't necessarily want to be around other people, and I don't want them to see me like that, and I don't want to negatively affect them. And I think that, I mean, obviously, social interaction is very performative. You don't know how someone's really feeling. And then the act of like performance over and over and over again that's not congruent with how you really feel can actually add extra weight, you know.
Do you think it's harmful when people are depressed but they feel like they need to be around other people?
Like entertainers and stuff.
Well,
I think that if they bring the depressive mood
Energy.
and energy, and then they it could bring somebody down. It depends on what they want to do. Do they want to? Sometimes you can be around other people and it could really uplift your spirits.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you needed.
Yeah,
right.
Comedians,
to be around other
I
people.
feel like do that a lot, and it works out on both sides. Like it's
Absolutely. Even when, like, I feel for some reason if I'm in an energetic situation that feels good, even though I'm in a depressive period of time, I can have a moment where I really do feel good. Because I think, and again, we didn't get deep into meditation about what it offers.
Bring that up, yeah.
But I'm telling you, from my experience, it has been a new way to observe and become self-aware, to observe my emotions, as a person who feels like emotions are things that are private and they come and go, right? They do come and go.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you recognize those dark feelings as part of you and not like, I want to just feel happy all the time, that's not possible.
Right.
When people want to choose, like, I would love to be happy all the time, that's not going to happen. You can enjoy happy moments. There's in Buddhism, they said everyone will have 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows in their life. And that every time I'm feeling down, I feel like, oh, this is one of those 10,000 sorrows, But then when you have the joyful moments, and it could only be maybe 5 minutes, put that in the joy bin in your brain.
Yeah.
So it's not like I want to compare how much I'm happy and how much I'm sad, right? To say that they're both there.
Yeah.
These emotions are both there. Everybody experiences them. We don't have to dissect them every time. We don't have to understand them, where they come from, what's the root. Is it biological? Is it chemical? Is it situational? Do I need to move the furniture around? Do I need to paint the walls? Do I need to cut my hair, turn my hair a different color? Like we find all these different ways to try to escape from it. And like, it's there. Sit with it.
And it's like, that's like the inner dialogue. And it's funny that some people don't even have that.
It's hard for me to believe, honestly, that part.
It's hard for me to believe I believe everyone has an inner dialogue, but I feel that other people are on these devices. Back in the day, you're waiting. Back in the day, and I'd always like, back in the day, it wasn't that long ago. Right?
We're not that old, okay?
Right? I was I lived in several cities. I was on public transit. There's a lot of observation, but there was no phones. There were no phones. So guess what? When you're waiting for that bus, you're thinking about shit. You're thinking, you processing emotions. You're sitting on the train. That is happening. Now it's this. Now we're just interacting with people or consuming someone else's information or consuming a picture and consuming a video. We're all guilty. I'm guilty. And now I will I'll put the device away more so now, because I feel it's deflecting me from my ability to sit with what's going on with myself right now. Right. Yeah. Instead of picking, God, I feel down. I'm not going to pull something up. I'm going to sit here and say, I don't need to know why I feel down. I don't need to figure out where it come from, how long it's going to last, how it's going to impact me. I'm going to say, there it is. Yeah. And guess what happens over maybe a couple hours? It could be a couple days. It dissipates. It does dissipate. It's like the cloud. The cloud is going to move. It could be there for a long time. It feels like a long time, but it is going to eventually move. So I'm telling myself more and more, it's like, the way you're feeling right now is temporary. Do not feel like this is how you're going to feel the rest of your, because that's usually what we feel. Like, I just don't feel, I feel unhappy. I'm discontent. I feel like I'm going to feel like this for the rest of my life. I don't think I want to feel this way for the rest of my life, as opposed to saying this is a temporary thing. I don't have to figure out, how does it feel in my body? For me, when I'm down, my energy is down. I don't want to do things. My appetite might be different, look at that, the ways in which it manifests in your physical body. Because I'm like, my appetite, well, maybe I need to eat something. Maybe I need, comfort food. I love comfort food. It really does work, right?
Yeah.
It does work. I mean, I've been
getting to the point where comfort food turns into guilt food.
Well, I said, you know what? I want to move through my 50s in a more healthy way. So in June, I 100% plant-based. Now I was really doing really well anyways, but it was the thing, I couldn't give up the cheese, the eggs and the cheese.
It's the bread for me.
Oh, the bread, of course.
Really hard,
absolutely.
But now
the bread, I'm working on the bread, and I always thought it was the meat for me too, right? And I said, you know what? Let's just do this experiment for the summer. Just do it for the summer, man, and see how it works out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't like you have to say this is my identity, right? But I'm like, don't cook any meat in your house. Now, mind you, I really only ate fish. So I had given up
Yeah.
all the other meat. But it was the cheese. All the cheeses. I was like so proud because
Try
I
not
knew
to do cheese.
Havarti, Gouda, you know, like I knew all these different cheeses and their meltability and what kind and it was just like cheese on everything. I was like, okay, so you're not eating meat, but you're gonna eat cheese, cheese.
Just melt good.
Oh
You
my
just
gosh.
put it on a tortilla.
Oh my
That
goodness.
is just,
And I got into sheep's cheese and goat cheese, acquired taste. Anyway, so I said, I'm gonna give all this up and see how it feels in my body. Physically, I started feeling better, lighter, less bloated, right? Mentally, a little bit of a shift. It's been a little bit of a shift, kind of a morose shift. So I think part of my last 6 months of shifting away from the dairy, because there's some things that, you need dairy. You can't, I'm going to make lasagna with no cheese, so I hadn't had that. I'm going to make pizza with no cheese.
They have plant-based cheese, but they're not the
but
same.
No, it's
still-
not
They
the
don't
same.
melt.
It'll never be the same.
Yeah.
Maybe, and I've tried a lot of the plant-based cheeses, and I'm making it work, right?
Acquired
Yeah.
But I don't have that. It's like I don't have that spark when it comes to food as I did before. I want to get it back. So now I feel like I'm dating whole vegetables, more vegetables. We're dating. We're cutting them up.
Yeah.
We're trying them in new ways. It's like, if you're going to do this, because I
Have you
continue.
ever tried the fire grilled from Costco's? They have like fire grilled vegetables. It's really, really good compared to some of the other ones. I know you're probably going fresh as well.
I've been
but these are
juicing a
little
lot,
frozen.
so I'm dealing with fresh juice.
I love the juice.
Yeah.
I did the juice thing. I have the Jack LaLanne juicer. You know what I mean? I try all these things. Sticking with it is a little bit different, but I'm gonna tell you, once you kind of get off a lot of those foods, you can't just
Your body lets you know.
right. You can't just swing up in there and be like, I'm gonna have me a grilled cheese sandwich. I'm like, okay, you ain't gonna be going nowhere, right? You're gonna feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Mentally, you're gonna feel. It's kind of like when people give up sugar. When people give up sugar, which I've done that because I try to, it's a way you can see if you were really addicted to sugar, or do you just like it? How much sugar are you eating, right? And then you're like, oh my God, sugar isn't in everything. How did I not know this? I probably knew, but I just didn't want to deal with it. People know things and they just like, I don't care. I'm going to do that. I'm going to live, I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm like, you know what? For me, it's not about longevity. For me, it's about how do I feel on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so because I extended it past the summer, I was like, I must feel better. And I was like, okay. So I've just kind of let my body do the. Remember, you said your body. I think we have to allow our body to do the lead sometimes.
Yeah.
And that happens with the relationship of our biology and our emotional state. Flow with that. Flow with the physical body, and then stop building the storylines in your head about why you think you're depressed and where your life is and where it's been and where it's going. Remove all that. Say, how do I feel right now in my body? Where does this emotion sitting? Like me, back issues and stuff. Someone said, probably there's an emotional connection there. It's like, well, there's some physical things going on, but there's an interplay between the emotional connectedness of our body. And that, again, emerges through me through a daily meditation practice.
What have you noticed by meditating consistently over a period of time?
So I was late to the online meditation party, if you will. The Sangha just reached 1,000 days of meditation. Can you believe that?
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's
1,000 consistently
it's
led
like
by a Dharma teacher.
3 years almost.
And so I'm probably around 600, 650 in terms of, and I don't count, I'm just estimating. And that's a really good question, because it wasn't until probably the last month or so that I was like, oh wait, okay, now something's starting to click for me. I mean, it took a long time.
Yeah.
But for me, and it's really hard to put into words, but what I've culminated, because I'm always observing, so what is this doing for me? It's kind of like, what is this not eating cheese doing for me? You've got to observe what's happening. And what I have learned is, although I'm a very productive person, right? But I feel okay with just being.
Mm.
And I've never felt okay with being. I felt like I'm the
Yeah.
hamster wheel.
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, you can get out of the hamster wheel if you want, but you can get off the hamster wheel and chill right next to the hamster wheel and just be. And you
back on the
don't
hamster
have
wheel.
to do anything. You don't have to do anything all the time.
Mm.
Because ultimately, depending upon what your belief system is of the afterlife and, you know, where you go or don't go or exist or not, like, okay, so why do I find this?
But then you have the gurus like, if you're wasting your time doing this, then you should be doing this, and you should, if you got to do this, and if you're not doing this and you're doing this,
got
you
the
should be doing this at
spiritual
all of the
people.
time, and you have to do this, or you're wasting. You know, you got that around every corner, and that gets to you too. It's like, you sit there and just be, and then you might have that little voice like, "Are you wasting time?" It's like.
But
No,
guess
I'm
where
just
they?
being-
But guess where they always end up? Guess where you always end up? Just being.
Just be.
Yeah.
That's where you always end up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When all that is over, like you said, I'm not going to box anymore. I'm not doing anything. Right. And then you should be like, I want to be okay with like,
Yeah,
if
just
I want to
be.
do something, I can. Right. Well, I mean, I always say put to the side. We all got to survive. We all got to
Yeah.
do something to make money. And this is the world we live in. But outside of that, you know, like I'm the person that always got something going on, always got a project. When that's done, I'm going to do this and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay.
We still came here for the human experience, and the human experience is not about.
It is not. No,
Yeah.
it's not. No. And I think one of the best things that you can offer to the world is which is what you do is allowing people to be seen, feel like they've been seen, even for a brief moment. That's why I do small talk in the grocery store, and people probably think I'm crazy, but I do, because I want them, when someone's shopping by themselves, you know, I want them to know that I see them, even if it's for that moment, because I like to have those moments when people see me just for a moment, that, oh, I am here. I really am here. I am here, and I don't have to be doing anything to be seen and to be heard. And that's why I had a small talk in the grocery store.
And I think that's lacking in the world today. I was watching
Absolutely.
Miss
'cause
Cleo
we're here.
documentary the other day on HBO, and so basically when you're calling the Cleo number, like you're not talking to Cleo, you're talking to a bunch of different people, and these people that were paying per minute to talk, they didn't really care at some point, you know, like you give them whatever excuse, they just wanted to be heard.
They wanted to be heard.
They want, you know, all of that, and they were willing to pay for it, because the society even then, and it's probably gotten worse now, it's like it doesn't account for that, or it doesn't give value to that. And more recently, I read an article about the new like dating app. They're like AI chatbot. So you basically create a profile, and they create you based on your interest and what you like in a person or whatever. They create a person for you, a wife, a husband, a boyfriend, multiple if you want. And people find it, and I was reading people's experiences, and they were basically like, they really, it was all varying ages and backgrounds, and the commonality is the same thing as the Miss Cleo thing. It was like they just needed somebody to talk to. They knew it was an AI, but it knew so much about them to create this, you know, what seemed to be a person, at least someone that you feel like you can talk to. So, and the AI like checks on you. They'd be like, hey, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? It'll ask you about your family and whatever. How's so-and-so doing? And it's more realistic because it's AI. And it basically, they just wanted to be heard. Like you were saying, like they just wanted to be heard and seen.
Yeah.
And lately it's like a lot of phone stuff. We have work on Zoom, and you know, we watch TV, and it's just like we're not as connected as before. So there's like a big need for that. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you said that too, because when I think about back in the day, like for example, I bought some plantains, right? I've never bought them, and you know why I've never bought them? I've eaten them, of course, but I've never bought them simply because I just don't know when they're ripe.
Right.
You know, I can pick up an avocado and be like, oh, 2 days on this one. Or like, oh, well, this one's ready tomorrow, and this one, 5 days, right? It's just by the feel. But I never did that with a plant. I'm like, why didn't I do that? Why take a risk? Grab the plantain, right?
Yeah.
But then I thought about the times when we would call somebody to ask them how to make something.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Google it.
Google and YouTube.
you do
YouTube
not
it.
have to really ask somebody how a question. Now, I will intentionally ask certain people that I know questions that I know I could find, because I want that to be a reason that we're talking, right? I want to hear how they do it. And coming from a time when that the internet wasn't there, that's how we did it. And I do miss that. It was like, how do you make, how long do you keep your rice? Now, I'll be honest with you. If I don't have anyone that I think I could call right at that moment, I will ask the Alexa immediately, like, how long for the rice in the Instant Pot? And it will find something that somebody had contributed to the internet to create. So the question about AI is, we call it artificial intelligence, but it's really pulling together all everything that's been contributed by other people and by ourselves. It's not coming out of thin air.
Yeah. And that's what people don't understand about artificial intelligence. They think it's smart. No, it can process a lot of data very quickly, and it has a lot of, it all depends on what data you put into it. Yeah. So that's basically it with computers. It's not that it's as smart as the person who created it or who gave it data. So,
yeah. Well, we don't want to hold you too long. We know we've been going a good little bit. I'm interested in knowing what you have for 2023, and we would definitely like to have you in as far as on some more stuff in the future.
Yeah,
well, when we have a fourth person to include on some conversation as well.
Oh yeah, fourth person. So yeah, this is an interesting year because I'm trying to approach it differently. I'm trying to approach it in the way where, even though I'm doing the animation thing, because there's a part of me that can't help myself.
Yeah.
Definitely familiar with that.
So I think I'm flirting with the idea of really not doing anything but read about topics of interest, read an actual old school book. I mean, I have them. Yeah. They're waiting for me. They're waiting for me. There's that. But I also have been working with a film director for the last 8 months on developing a show Bible and a pitch deck for a 1 hour comedy series. I mean, that was he went to New York to do some work. He lives in LA, but he went to New York to do some work. So then we had to do Zooms on Saturday mornings, to collaborate and work on that. We finished that, so we're at the point right now where I don't know what's going to happen with that yet, but at least we finished that piece of it. So that was a good shift for me to do that, because I do like doing that, but then sometimes scripted work to me is challenging, right? That's why I kind of like to dabble in the improv. I'm doing some improv workshops and practice groups and things like that. But the thing that I wanted, there's an intention setting ceremony that happens on New Year's Eve. And a lot of Buddhists do that. We did it on first, been doing it on Zoom. It used to be in person. Like 200 people would come to the center, and then everyone would go up, light a candle, and state what their intention was, rather briefly, for the next year. And I take that very seriously. It's not like a resolution. It's like an intention. This is what, and there's a list of these. There's 5 hindrances to enlightenment. Things like ill will, sensory desire, doubt. There's 5 things, right? And I want to focus on observing where those things show up in my life. And already I know doubt shows up a lot more than I'm willing to admit. Yeah. And when I say doubt, it's really not about me. it's not about like trusting whether I can do something. Mine is it's the doubt around the requirement of other people to buy into what I'm putting out there, you know? So that's where the expectations are interesting. Like, for example, like writing the book. You know, when you write a book and spend all that time and put it out there, you just think, I'm going to change the world. You know, I'm going to change. This is just going to, my life is going to be completely transformed because of this. And I'll tell you, I get that little report. I haven't sold one book in like, 2 years. And I'm like, okay with it. Because that wasn't the reason. So I think doubt for people is not so much about tapping into our potential. It's about, well, what if like we tap into it and it's like we think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and now everyone's making their hamburgers with green leaf lettuce and you got a loaf of bread. I'd be like, eat the damn loaf of bread, toast it one day, chop it up, use whatever you've created, just enjoy it for the creation of it, as opposed to what it means in this arsenal. And I think making that shift is hard. Yeah. This is LA, like there's so many talented people here,
And a billion-dollar industry.
I'm still in the commercial acting game. I submitted for like about 1,050 roles last year. Wow. I think I was like, I think I might have eight or so, right? But that continues on. There's a whole
persistence and consistency.
There's a whole process of this. It's integrated into my life. Look at the things: submit, headshot, boom, boom, audition. I did like 3 voiceover auditions, and even though I may not, even though I may not get the roles, most of them, I'd be like, but I did that. I sat down, I read the lines, I recorded it, I uploaded it, downloaded it, sent it out, all that, and you feel accomplishment in that you at least tapped into your potential and put it out there.
You completed what you started.
You complete completion. There it is. I think completion in those micro moments. I talk about completion. I put contact paper in my drawers where I put my silverware. And when I got that done, I was like, yes. Nobody celebrates that, right? I was like celebrating. People come over, I'd be like, look, I got it all organized and everything. And I've been wanting to do that for like months. I'm like, why did you not do that? So I guess the last thing I would leave really is, because we did talk about depression and mood shifts and not having the spark. Redirect that energy into cleaning underneath the bed or going through your clothes or organize. Why do you got 5,000 pens and markers? And you always use the same. Like, it will it'll take you away from all that heavy thought. And you'll be like, I'm going to move the couch over here and I'm going to, wash all the towels and I'm going to, that kind of, I get into a cleaning mode.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
At the end of the year so that I can start the new year fresh. And it does something to your mind and it does something to your spirit. And I think that Marie Kondo should get some credit for that. Even though I'm on the Marie Kondo, The Joy of Tidying Up. Have you ever heard of that?
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard of The Joy of Tidying Up. I don't remember the name.
The name.
In a nutshell, it's a process, right, to go through your stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've lived in my house.
Get messy first and then you have to clean up.
I've lived in my house for 14 years. That's very different than moving every year or two, because you are forced to go through stuff or just throw it in a box and then the box comes with you wherever you move. But the idea is you pick up every object you have and see if it sparks joy. Yeah. Right? And so I went through everything on my wall. Where'd I get it? Who gave it to me? Usually it's something that someone gave it to me. Yeah. Are they ever going to see that I don't have this and they gave it to me because it doesn't really spark joy? I move it, I donate it, I give it away, and I'm gonna tell you what, you feel lighter every step of the way. Yeah. So again, there are ways in which you can, when we talk the word control, we can control our physical environment, and that physical, like I'm in the process of painting my kitchen cabinets because for years I've just hated the color.
That's gratifying.
See, it is, and that's to me how I get through the dark moments is like redirect it. Scrub the tile. It's weird, but it works.
Yeah. And it's kind of meditative in a way.
It is.
Bit,
You can meditate while you.
Yeah.
I learned I can meditate while I'm washing dishes because I hate. I gotta go wash it. No, you want them to be clean and look at the shape of the fork and flip it around
and not rushing through things.
not
When you were
rushing.
saying about the vegetables stuff, I can't be rushed when I'm cooking.
See?
There's certain things that I do. I don't want to be rushed. Just like because I've cooked with a friend before, and they're like, "Why are you chopping so slow?" And I'm like, no, I don't. It's a meditative process for me. I don't.
It is the warmth of the water in your hands, the smell of the dish soap. If you get into
transformation,
the sensory experiences of it, and then you're like, oh shit, I just did all the dishes. What? I'm working on that in terms of folding laundry and putting that away expeditiously.
Guys, I'm folding laundry. He doesn't like it either. I don't mind.
yeah.
But
But Akello, it's been great catching up.
Absolutely,
I know we can go more. I know, but
of course
we're not
we
gonna
can.
hold it. We're gonna save it for another time. Grateful to have you here physically. It's a totally different experience. We're looking forward to doing a lot more physical interviews this year. So, like I said, it's just something that I like a whole lot more. Nothing take away from the Zoom.
I got you though. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. You know, if you can't do it face to face, that's like the next best thing. But there is nothing like face to face in the physical presence. And ask anybody who's been to group therapy, an exercise class, a yoga class, a Zumba class, everything. People like to be around other people, even if they don't have to interact with them the whole time. Just being in that energy. So.
And I appreciate the gems as well that you dropped about.
Oh, I think, absolutely.
Experience.
Dropping gems and, that come to mind, whatever comes to mind. Like my old age experience is finally going somewhere.
Just life experience.
Yeah.
We leave out the age.
We all have it. We all
life
have it.
Experience.
We all have it. And I think everyone should have the opportunity to share a little bit about their life.
Yeah.
And I guess like before, let our audience know where they can find you.
What the easiest way is my website, akellostone.com. I'm also on Instagram at Akello Stone. You can hit my link tree up or whatever. You explore what I put out there. It's always changing. I'm always evolving, and I think we are all evolving. And I think part of that evolution is recognizing that we have the power to redirect our energies. And we have the power to pull ourselves up from moments of doubt and fear and whatever we want to call it. It's a temporary. Let it visit. It's not going to stay long. Sound like the guest. I thought you was going to be here one day. No, 3 days, right? Okay. But you know what? The 3 days it's going to happen. It's going to be, you'll get there. You'll get through it. But while you're there, that's the opportunity really to sit with those feelings. And again, see where they go, where they are in your body. You do not have to rewrite the storyline of your life to figure out why you are feeling this way at this point. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. And we believe in constantly evolving. That's why our brand is consistent self-improvement.
Consistent.
Shameless plug. So if you guys want to get a consistent self-improvement brand, T-shirts, a lot of different things, pillows, sweaters, and all of the phone cases.
So on the links.
Check it out, luamlee.com, and links will be in the description along with Akello's information. And you can find us on all podcast platforms. You can also find us at AmericanGypC.com. And we also have
we have music under Classic Carpenter, KLACCIK CARPENTA, and that's on all major platforms.
And we also have Book a Bear, right? We recently started.
Always evolving.
I know, always evolving, right?
Man.
We collect crystals, clean them up, and create jewelry and put them in display cases. So if you're interested in that,
thank you,
Akello is one of our
customers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, imagine having, something. I don't like to give people things that are mass produced. Number one, it's like, I know you dug it up, you cleaned it up, you made it into jewelry. I know someone, it's just like, that's what it's all about. Like just that and transference of that energy and what's happening with that particular. It's not just about the thing,
Yeah.
but it's all about the origin and whose hands. I just love stuff that people make by hand. And I think we have to support one another, who, you know, and what we're putting out into the world, whatever it is. If we're aligned with it, we got to support it actively. You know, actively.
Yeah.
We appreciate the love and support.
Absolutely.
So if you want some crystals, we have an Etsy shop, bookabarite.com or bookabarite on Etsy. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Happy New Year once again.
Yeah.
And consistent self-improvement.
Peace.
Peace.